on them and go directly to things essential to Islam. As you read these words, remember that internal contradiction is one of the surest signs something is false. Muhammad, we are discovering, is the poster boy for this dubious honor, and our boy's nose is about to grow a mile longer.
Tabari. The black stone, which was originally whiter than snow, was brought down with Adam as well as the staff of Moses. It was made from the myrtle of paradise, which, like Moses, was 10 cubits, or 5 meters, tall, and also myrrh and incense. Then anvils, mallets, and tongs were revealed to him. When Adam was cast down upon the mountain, he looked at an iron rod growing on the mountain. The first thing of iron he hammered was a long knife,
Also known as a sword.
Then he hammered the oven, the one which Noah inherited, and that boiled with the punishment in India. When Adam fell down, his head brushed against heaven. As a result, he became bald, and passed on baldness to his children.
What was a rock doing in paradise? If one could take something, wouldn't they pick an implement more useful than a stone? Yet while that stone was worthless to Adam, it was supremely useful for Muhammad. He turned a Meccan meteorite into the creator God of the universe. But Allah's stone was black. How and why did Snow White turn ugly? Muhammad said.
The stone turned black because it was fingered by menstruating women.
A few more questions remain. If Moses was 5 meters tall, over 16 feet, how did he pass himself off as being part of Pharaoh's family? And finally, how could Adam have hit his head against heaven by falling down? Perhaps this is a clue. Muhammad is telling us something about Allah and the location of the Islamic paradise. Why be so picky, you may be wondering? Ancient mythology and pagan religions are full of such nonsense. Yes, but Islam was invented 10 centuries after the last pagan myth was conceived. So he is without excuse. More to the point, Muslims are killing us today because of Muhammad's claim. Suicide bombers blast themselves into oblivion based upon this maniac's promises. Simply stated, a prophet who makes a practice of lying shouldn't be trusted. Muhammad's promise of paradise for martyrs who die killing infidels can't be relied upon. Calling this verbal diarrhea a religion doesn't make it one. Right from the beginning, there has been a clear and undeniable pattern of deception and delusion, and it never ends. Muhammad was willing to say and do anything in the name of his spirit, so long as it advanced his personal agenda. Muhammad, speaking on behalf of Allah, in an Islamic hadith says,
I shall have one of those houses singled out for my generosity, and distinguish it from all others by my name, and call it my house. I shall have it proclaim my greatness, and it is upon it that I have placed my majesty.
Allah is bragging about a stubby pile of unhewn and unmortared rocks. His house didn't even have a roof because there was no wood for beams or carpenters in Mecca.
My majesty.
Indeed. Sounding more like Hinduism than Islam.
In addition, I, being in everything and altogether with everything, shall make that house a safe sanctuary, whose sacredness will extend to those around, those underneath, and those above it.
Some safe sanctuary it turned out to be. Muhammad led dozens of armed raids against the Meccans for control of Allah's house. Even today, the Kaaba is the cornerstone of terror.
I shall make it the first house, founded as a blessing for mankind in the valley of Mecca. They will come to it disheveled and covered with dust upon all kinds of emaciated mounts from every ravine, shouting, At your service, shedding copious tears and noisily proclaiming, Allahu Akbar.
These are the words Islamic terrorists say before they commit murder.
You shall dwell there, Adam, for as long as you live. Then the nations, generations, and prophets of your children shall live there, one nation after the other.
Outright deceit is another way to tell if someone is worthy of being the founder of a religion. There is no trace of a permanent settlement in Mecca, much less a nation prior to the 6th century. Depending on whether you believe Moses or Muhammad, Adam left the garden 6,000 to 7,500 years ago. That's a 4,500-year error. The harder Muhammad tries to make Mecca and the Kaaba appear credible and religious, the less credible and religious they appear.
He commanded Adam to go up to the sacred house, which was cast down to earth for him.
What happened to building it and the rocks from the 4 mountains?
And to circumambulate it, just as he used to see the angels circumambulate Allah's throne. The sacred house was a single jewel, I was told. The house was cast down, being a single jewel.
Those last 2 lines confirm something Muslims vociferously deny. A house is a place in which people live. It is unlike a temple, which is a place where people go to worship. Allah's house was a stone. Most pagan gods were thought by their creators to embody the idol that represented them. Allah was no different.
Tabari. Eventually, when Allah drowned the people of Noah, he lifted it up, but its foundation remained. Allah established it as a residence for Abraham, who rebuilt its later form.
That's where all of this was going all along. Muhammad had to introduce Noah and then connect Mecca and Islam to Abraham. Allah's messenger turns both Noah and Abraham into prophets that are indistinguishable from himself. Allah, we are told, drowned everybody because they mocked Noah's message, just as he will burn those who mock Muhammad's. Then he remade Abraham in his image, as a Muslim who was tormented and tested. These things were needed to justify his reliance on the Bible, and to make himself and the Kaaba appear worthy.
Tabari. When we were sitting in the mosque, Mujid said, "Do you see this?" I replied, "You mean the stone?" He said, "You call it a stone?" I said, "Is it not a stone?" He said, "I was told by Abdallah bin Abbas that it was a white jewel that Adam took out of paradise to wipe his tears, tears that did not stop for 2,000 years. I said, "Why and how did it turn black?" He replied, "Menstruating women were touching it in the Jahiliyyah,"
the time of ignorance. Muhammad valued Allah's stone as much as he despised menstruating women. His faithful managed to tie these things together. What you're going to hear next is one of the most diabolical doctrines of Islam. Men and women are born to be tormented. They had no choice in the matter. Eternal damnation is God's doing, not ours.
Tabari. Then Allah rubbed Adam's back and brought forth his progeny, and every living being to be created by Allah to the day of resurrection came forth at Naaman. He scattered them in front of him like tiny ants. He made covenants with them. He took 2 handfuls and said to those on the right, "Enter paradise." And he said to the others, "Enter fire. I do not care."
A loving and merciful God, if there ever was one. But beyond demented, this is further evidence that Allah and Yahweh are opposites. Yahweh wants us to choose to love Him. Allah chose for us, and He doesn't care, much less love. A moment's reflection on this doctrine renders an undeniable verdict. Islam is irrelevant. If all men and women are predestined to heaven or hell, faith is folly. Good works are no more valuable than bad ones. Rituals are ridiculous. Martyrdom is madness. Eat, drink, and be merry, for a back rub sealed our fate.
Tabari. The messenger said, Allah created Adam, and then rubbed Adam's back with his right hand and brought forth his progeny. Then he said, I have created these as the inhabitants of paradise. Then he rubbed his back with his left hand and said, I have created those for the fire, and they will act as the inhabitants of the fire. A man asked, O messenger, how is that? Muhammad replied, when Allah creates a human being for paradise, He employs him to act as the inhabitants of paradise, and he will enter paradise. And when Allah creates a human being for the fire, He will employ him